79.2. All right, so we looked at AB 425, which is this bill proposed by Jerry Brown and co-sponsored by a Democrat and a Republican that was in the previous, that was going to make it easier to do some cutting, and that kind of got hung up in the legislature. But it doesn't mean it's dead. And I looked, and as we were looking, there are at least a dozen bills pertaining to forest management that are working their way through the legislature. So it's a problem that the legislature is focusing on, and obviously stuff's going to get, it's been a concern for decades. Obviously more so recently as the fires get worse. But it's not a thing where nothing's going to happen or where nothing has happened. There's been progress. Obviously, the progress hasn't kept up with the scope of the fires, but it's not as if everything's been totally stonewalled and stalemated.
Well, the bills, the main thing standing in the way of these bills is environmental groups. And there's no way to deny that. That's what's happening, and the Democrats are taking orders from environmental groups. Some Democrats realize, you know, we want to do what the environmentalists want, but unfortunately the people are dying by the thousand now, so we better do something. But I blame the Democrats, and they're being in the pocket of the environmentalists. That's my final opinion.
Well, so that may be part of the problem, but it's not. As I listed a bunch of other reasons. So let's move on.
All right. So the what I wanted to talk about briefly is Kevin McCarthy is the interim leader of the House for the next 2 or 3 months until the new Democrats take over the House in the United States. And he is a Republican, and he's done something very interesting. He actually says that while the Republicans are still in charge, he's going to propose building a wall.
They've got about 4 working weeks left in this Congress.
Okay, so he can actually propose building a wall, and I'm going to be very interested to see how this works out, because a lot of people think that the reason the wall hasn't gotten built is not just the Democrats. I'll give you that. There are turncoat Republicans that don't go along with it either. So we're going to find out, if you pay attention, in the next couple of months, we're going to find out if the Republicans really have the belly to build a wall, because they still have control of the Congress. They can allocate the funds. Now, there is no doubt that the Democrats are going to vote en masse against it. Rick's been telling our audience that Democrats are for border security, and I've been saying they're not. So this will be a moment of truth. At the very least, they're going to vote 100% against building a wall. And I want to see if the Republicans can pass this bill.
Ooh, do you want to have a bet, or you hate having bets?
What is the bet? The
bet would be that some Democrats would vote for the wall. You're saying 100% they won't. Well, that not one Democrat would vote for the wall.
They've got roughly 250 people in the House of Representatives, and I'm going to say
no, 435.
No, but roughly 250 are Democrats.
No, 191.
Okay, so of that 191, I'm going to say at least 5/6 will vote against the wall when this comes up.
Okay.
I'm going to say a tiny percentage. There may be half a dozen Democrats.
You're going to say fewer than 1 in 6.
Absolutely, I would say fewer than 1 in 10.
Okay. All right. So you're saying 20 or fewer, just to give you a little bit of
are going to vote in favor of building a wall. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
So, I mean, in my mind, I think people aren't really opposed to the wall. I think what they're opposed to is the wall being used to demagogue stuff. If you could make the wall magically appear,
yes,
everybody'd be okay with that.
I don't believe you, because the Democrats are using illegals to win elections now.
Yeah, I don't believe that. And so I guess I'm going to say, yeah, more than 20 will vote for a wall unless it's connected to a bunch of other stuff. But we'll see. All right.
All right.
Now, you want to talk about comedy.
Okay. I was forced against my will to watch modern comedy, which is always disappointing to me. The first thing I saw was Trevor Noah, and he did this stand-up routine that was the most feline. Okay, I'm from the 70s, and when I was young, comedians were sort of social critics that were that stated uncomfortable truths. And Trevor Noah really disgusted me because he was so PC. I can't remember all the things I hated, but one of them was that when you're a modern stand-up comedian, you have to say all men are pigs and women are just heroes. And so he gets up there and he says that, and there's, all the women in the audience go, yeah, yeah. And there are some men that go along with it because they want to get laid that night. So they're like, all of a sudden, they're feminists too. Yeah, men, they're pigs. And by the way, men see right through this. Men with integrity. These guys, these young guys that try to pretend that they're PC feminists are only doing it to get laid from girls that are in this modern era. It's disgusting. If you're a man, don't be a sniveling weasel to try to get laid and say, oh yeah, women, they're superior. Okay, don't do that. It's bullshit. I see right through it. But anyway, so Trevor Noah does all this. And then he comes down, he basically quotes a whole bunch of things about how he loves Obama, he hates Trump, and everyone's laughing. Like that's a joke. There's something funny about that. And he goes on and on. He said that, he was very critical of white men, like white men are the real problem, which is weird because even when I was young in the unpolitically correct 70s, I don't remember white comedians saying anything about black men.
Well,
I don't remember jokes about
false
black
equivalent.
men. No, but I mean, why is it...
Black men have never been in charge of the country.
Oh, you're so brainwashed. So let me get this straight. Because black men don't have power, this is left-wing theory right here. This is absolute PC theory. You can make fun of white men, but you can't make fun of black men?
You can, but you can't. I mean, if you're looking at, a principle of comedy that I've heard a zillion times, and that I mostly agree with, though not 100%, is you punch up, you don't punch down.
Well, are you telling me that black men are so vile that you'd be punching down if you criticize them?
You attack the people in charge.
So there's nothing funny about black men, but there's a lot that's funny about white men. I understand you punch up, but see, the thing is, my father, who was a famous comedy writer, explained it to me like this. He said, if you're going to make a joke about a famous actor. Don't make a joke about somebody that just does a few commercials, because people feel sorry for the guy that just does a few commercials. But my point is, I think if you can make fun of a whole race of white men, I think you can make fun of a whole race of black men. I don't think you're punching down. I don't think black men are so pathetic that you can't kid around about.
So what specifically was Trevor Noah making fun of about?
I don't remember exactly, but he also said.
Well, wait. Let me ask you: what should comedians make fun of, like the horrific murder rate in inner city Chicago, for instance? Because that's a huge problem is that a bunch of people, most of them black, I believe, in Chicago, get murdered. Is that what you want jokes about?
No.
What do you want jokes about with
Well,
regard to?
I am now expected to write jokes for Trevor Noah.
Well, I don't know. I got to say,
I mean,
that,
I do a lot in this show. I paint your picture. I defeat you in debates. Now I got to write sketches.
I got to say that I preferred the previous host of The Daily Show, Jon Stewart, to Trevor Noah. I thought his stuff was stronger. But
I mean, look, you can talk about Trevor Noah. Let me just finish my point about comedy.
wait, can I make fun of black people for a second?
Please.
It's not really making fun of black people. It's making fun of black stereotypes. That
Okay.
I've never understood, right? I came to not understand why it's so hilarious to stereotype black people as liking food that's delicious. Like, black people stereotypically enjoy fried chicken, watermelon, grape soda, and I forget what else, but I mean, those are three big ones. And all three of those things are frickin' delicious. Grape soda is like the best soda. Barbecue, there you go. All those things. Frickin', so I don't understand. I mean, I understand that, yeah, you can make fun of that you're making the really worst, most racist humor involving those things shows black people just going absolutely crazy for those things. But as a general principle, it's ridiculous to make fun of, in my mind, to make fun of black people for having the good sense to like food that's delicious.
Okay. All right. I don't know who's actually making fun of them.
Well, you can look, I mean, Google, like go Google images and black people in watermelon, and you'll see like little porcelain figurines from the 1930s of like a small black child holding a huge slice of watermelon and being, just.
But I'll bet you will not find a working comedian that expects to get a job in Hollywood making fun of black people.
Well, black people can make fun of black people.
All right. Let me just go on to my next point. So then after that, I was forced to see this show called The Office. And I saw 3 episodes of it.
Who forced you? How'd this happen?
I think that's rather a personal question.
All right, fine.
But I was... okay, so now the subject of The Office, one of the shows, was sexual harassment in the office. And what happens in the show is everybody is getting trained in the office so that they won't commit sexual harassment. So they have a sexual harassment trainer come down to tell them what they can say and not say. Now, everybody hates political correctness. Mm-hmm. Except that in this show, what they did was they had the jerks, the people that were made fun of, the idiots in the show, were all saying, wait a minute, I want to be able to say whatever I want. And the cool people in the show, like there are a couple of cool characters, they were all really excited and positive about getting sexual harassment training so that they would be sensitive to women's issues.
Who were the cool people?
Jim?
Was Jim one of them?
I don't...
The tall guy, John Krasinski?
The tall guy that's kind of good-looking, kind of laid-back guy. He was like really up there with the women. And all the women were very offended. The whole show. It was just, this woman's offended, this woman's offended, this woman's offended. And the boss, that everyone thinks is a jerk, he was like, wait a minute. You can't tell us what we can joke about. We're trying to have an office where we're all friends and relaxed. But they made him look like an ass. And I realized this is how this generation is getting brainwashed. This generation thinks it's cool to have their freedom of speech taken away. This generation thinks it's funny if you oppose that. And they think, yeah, I really want sexual harassment training. I want my speech in the office controlled. And if you actually think that you should be able to make jokes without getting fired, you're the jerk.
But didn't the episode, I don't remember that episode, but I bet you the episode had a couple dozen jokes that were actually people saying horrible sexually harassy things, right?
And immediately made to look like fools. Like, whoever's watching this show, you see how terrible people are when they say jokes? I mean, you cannot joke because you will offend a woman.
Yet you watched an entire show that was based on making those jokes. And I
realize that it sounds like a contradiction. But the subliminal message of the show was that it's really cool to have your freedom of speech taken away if it's for a good cause. And this is how people are being turned politically correct. The young generation today is totally PC. They have bought all of this stuff. And the other thing I wanted to say about Trevor Noah is that he wasn't a comedian that makes fun of society. He's not a comedian that points out the authority is wrong. He's a comedian that's saying, hey, we all need to be PC. We need PC. We need not to make jokes about different people. He's part of it.
All right, so then if he's doing that, you know, I don't know that I can support that entirely.
He disgusted me.
All right,
if that guy I don't. And by the way, here was another thing. He made a joke.
Well, let's not talk about Trevor Noah anymore, because I agree that he's kind of soft on stuff. Let's talk about Louis C.K.
Okay, I don't know anything about him.
Well, then I'll tell you. All right,
except,
Louis C.K.
This guy masturbates, right?
The deal is that he had a deal, and where for some reason he liked it made him jizz to be able to jack off in front of a woman, one that he didn't know very well. He'd ask permission first. He'd go, it'd be okay if I jacked off.
Well, at least he was a gentleman.
But due to the power dynamic, he's a huge successful comedian, and then he kind of ask like newbies, beginning comedians, you know, can I beat off in front of you? And I guess he might have asked, I think, people who were actually better established, but he liked beating off in front of women. And it became clear that in a lot of instances there was a power dynamic where the women were going, yeah, but weren't into it, and were kind of saying, yeah, because he had the power and they didn't. And that it drove some women out of comedy. So anyway, Louis C.K. disappears for a year, just doesn't do any public performances, and had some projects that weren't released, and he's back, and he's doing stand-up now.
Okay.
And people feel that maybe he didn't pay a big enough price for his jizzing.
Exactly. Okay. Well, I mean, do you want my response?
I guess, because that's the freaking show we're doing.
Here's the thing. If I invite Louis C.K. over to the house, and I leave the house, and he masturbates in front of my auntie, then no, that guy deserves to be in prison. But if some aspiring comedian is in his apartment and he asks her, isn't it kind of up to her to say, Louis C.K., if you masturbate in front of me, I'm calling the cops? I mean, in other words...
Well, she wouldn't have to do that. All she have to do...
Wait, I realize, isn't it kind of up to her to stand up for her honor and say, excuse me, sir, I will not brook this kind of behavior in my presence.
Yeah, but...
In other words, wait, I'll explain to you. Let me go further. You say there's a power dynamic. He's powerful, and they wanted to be comedians, so they were awestruck. So they let him masturbate in front of them.
They weren't awestruck. They just didn't know what this would.
But if a gallery, I would like to have my paintings in a gallery. Now, there are powerful gay men in the art world. If any of them said, "Hey, Lance, I'll give you a show at this museum, but I got to masturbate in front of you," I would say, you know what? It's not worth it. I'd rather not have the show in the museum and not see you masturbate. But these women didn't have the wherewithal to say, "Hey, Louis C.K., that's something I don't want to see."
Well, we don't know that 100% of women didn't have the wherewithal, but some didn't. And you have almost 40 years experience in the art world.
Yes.
And you're a man.
I guarantee if I'd have been taking it up the ass this whole time, I'd be world famous.
All right, but imagine like...
And who says I didn't? Yeah. but I didn't get a good deal.
But imagine somebody who's 23.
Yeah. When I was 23, I knew. I was getting more offers then than I do now, and I still said no.
Yeah, well, I don't know that 100% of... And we're hearing from the women who are like... You sat on David Niven's lap when you were 2. You've been around powerful movie stars. He didn't do anything. He just drove you around in his Rolls Royce. But if
listen, when I was 2, I just thought, hey, this could be my big shot.
But
I was already thinking, you know.
I don't know that this conversation's going to go anywhere except get us in trouble. But
all I can say is this. If the women didn't have the wherewithal to say no when he started masturbating in front of them, I hope they had the reflexes to jump out of the way when the moment came.
Okay. And yeah, we should move on. All right.
All right.
Carol made me, we saw Boy Erased yesterday, or we saw 3/4 of it, which is about a kid who was revealed to be gay. He's 18. His dad's a preacher, and they send him to get gay conversion therapy, which is where people claim they can change somebody from gay to straight. And Carol got so upset at this. It was so depressing to her, what was happening to the kid, that we had to leave. And I wanted to leave anyway because it was a really slow, I thought it was a slow movie. It's like, I think every movie should be half an hour shorter. Things need to move along. You know, we've all seen 500,000 movies, so movies should move faster. But what struck me about the so-called therapy offered in this movie is there was no therapy. The therapy consisted of saying, if you keep being gay, we're not going to be your friend. Nobody in the church is going to be your friend. Jesus is not going to be your friend. And there was no therapy. There was no reconditioning. There was just coercion saying, just stop doing this or else everybody's going to be pissed off at you. And there was at no point in the movie was any kind of case made. And this was based on this kid's true experience with this kind of so-called therapy. There was not even an iota of a chance that anybody would be converted by this. Not biology aside, that just it was just finger shaking, and they beat one kid with a Bible, and then at that point we left. So you defend gay conversion therapy.
When did I say that?
You said that people had a right to try to practice it, and that it's not a complete sham.
I think they have. Okay, let me respond. First of all, what do you really think this movie is ever going to do? Did you walk in there imagining that they were going to give an objective view of gay conversion therapy in a Hollywood movie?
Yeah, because it's based on a kid's real experience.
Right,
I expect
and I'll bet they're going to go into the science and the statistics.
There is no science. There is no freaking science of doing it. It's obviously, I mean, if somebody gave me $1 million and said, if you can convert just one person from gay to straight, you get this $1 million. I wouldn't just say, well, nobody's going to be your friend if you keep gaying it up.
That's how it was depicted in the film, though. It's a Hollywood movie.
Yeah, but
Rick.
it's also based on a
it's
true
not Hollywood
story.
Movies
It's
aren't
based
real.
on a true story.
Okay.
And it
All right, let me respond now. I'll tell you what I think about gay therapy, conversion therapy. Number one, it probably doesn't work. From what I've heard, it doesn't work very often, but that occasionally it does work. That's all. I mean, in other words, of 100 cases, they're saying that maybe 5 do convert to being heterosexual.
Maybe, well,
But in which case, okay, if you really want to be heterosexual, maybe it's worth a try. And I think it should be legal. I just don't think it should be illegal.
well, but if it makes everybody who goes through it miserable,
Well, I mean,
and it doesn't really work.
the problem is that in this California state legislature, they were going to make it illegal.
Yeah, because it doesn't work.
No, I think if we look up the statistics, it probably works now and then, but rarely. I'll grant you that. Okay, I'll grant you that. But I have an argument that I just thought up just now, and I want you to think about this. You know, when you pick one woman, you can't have sex with any other woman.
Mm-hmm.
So you're already controlling your sexual behavior because you're married. Now, my argument is this. Most of the gay men I've met in my life have bragged to me
They've been with women.
about the fact that they've been with women. So my argument is this. If it really mattered to you, couldn't you be with a woman and then do like everybody else does that marries a woman, just not have sex with anybody else?
Maybe not for 10, 20, 30, a lifetime.
Well, maybe you could.
And be miserable for your whole life.
Well, but my point is this. Are you, if you were capable of doing it with a woman, then you can enjoy a woman. You can get an erection. You can be aroused by her. You couldn't have done it once.
Well, I mean, we saw Mary Queen of Scots today.
Wait, just let me finish my point.
But the deal
So
is,
just-
there's
I
a
just-
scene in Mary Queen of Scots where somebody's trying to get somebody to have sex with a gender they don't want to have sex with, and that person says, "Just close your eyes."
Okay.
But what kind of life is that?
No, but what I'm saying is, why is it that every gay guy I know brags that he's been with women and could be with more women than me if he felt like it? I hear this all the time. I've had gay men say that gay men are so sexy that they always say, they don't always, but they've told me so many times, yeah, I could be with women all the time, I just don't feel like it, but I've been with many women. So my argument is,
Well, not every gay guy has been with many women.
no,
Maybe
well, the ones that I've talked to about this have often told me
Well, that's
that
still
they're
not.
that they're fully capable of being with
That's
a woman.
not an argument.
Well, no, it's an argument. It's an argument that, well, if you could be with a woman, why couldn't you stay with that woman if you really wanted to be straight?
Because you don't really want to be straight. You want to be. Would you want to be gay for your whole life?
Well,
Would you?
no.
You made the argument one way. Now let me make it the other way. If somebody offered you $500,000, no, let's make it $2.5 million. You could jack off a dude while he jacked you off, right? For $2.5 million?
No, I wouldn't do it.
Oh, come on.
No, I wouldn't be worth it to me.
But could you do, like, okay, at gunpoint?
At gunpoint?
Sure. See, if it was,
I'd say pull the trigger. Pull the trigger.
all right, you're ridiculous.
I don't want to live in. But here's the thing. But what I'm saying is this: I as a man, when I get married, I will not be able to be with all the other people. I mean, everybody practices restriction of some kind. That's all I'm saying. So I don't know why you couldn't be straight if you felt like it, if you wanted to be.
No, well,
If you were, for example, a devout Christian, but you were gay, you might be able to be happy with a woman. Not as happy as if you were fucking a different guy every night, but you might be able to limit yourself, don't you think? Couldn't there be a guy out there that says, you know what, I'm just going to be with one person, it's going to be a woman, I won't be as delighted as if I was with,
that's just a bad argument, because
John Travolta.
You should be able to be Christian.
Yes.
And gay.
But you are. I don't say
you should be able to be Christian and gay.
You could be.
And boning dudes.
I believe that there are plenty out there, and I don't think they're going to go to hell for that. Okay. That in my opinion, you can be Christian and gay. But I'm saying if you wanted to be straight, to lead a straight life, I think you could. You'd just be a little bit frustrated like everyone else in the world.
No, you'd be miserable for most of your life.
Everybody's a little miserable.
But that's not an excuse to make people miserable for no good reason.
No, but what I'm saying is this. If you really believed in the tenets of Christianity...
No, but you're saying that Christianity requires you to be straight.
It does. But not everybody...
Based on what, one sentence in the Bible? 2 sentences in the Bible?
No, there's a whole bunch of them.
How many sentences? You don't know.
Well, they're in Deuteronomy and Leviticus, I believe. Those are the 2 books of laws. And they say a man that lieth with a man should be, I don't know, executed.
Yeah. And also people who don't do the right things with their sheets during menstruation. And also, what about pork?
No, but you're not supposed to be killed for eating pork. But my point is this.
You are supposed to be stoned for certain, or cast out for certain menstrual mistakes.
Okay, they never practiced that.
Well, yeah, but...
all
right, but the deal is...
all I'm saying is everybody is restricted. The only people that aren't restricted...
Yeah, but it's still a terrible... All right,
you keep interrupting me. Let me just finish the point.
I understand the fucking...
I know you do, but I just want to say, everybody restricts themselves. And even if you were gay and you got married, there would, if you were true to that one man, you'd still have men you couldn't have sex with.
Yeah, but it's
you'd be limiting
misery. And also,
all right,
gay conversion therapy is supposed to make you okay with not being gay anymore, and it doesn't work that way. You're not okay with it. It doesn't get rid of your gay desires. It's ineffective at doing that.
Is Lance's view on gaiety more consistent with the Muslim view or the Christian view?
Well, I'd say Lance has said that the Muslim religion isn't subject to revision. And I don't know, I assume that that's true based on what you say. So in that case, I mean, I think most people have shifted, and most Christians have shifted to thinking that, gayness is okay. If the Muslim religion hasn't encompassed that, then, Lance is a Muslim.
Well, in Iran today, I never get tired of telling liberals
Lance, you're a Muslim.
Hey, I never get tired of telling liberals this. In Iran, they throw
people off of roofs.
Homosexuals off roofs. In fact, about 5 years ago, that it turned out there had been 7,000 homosexuals executed in Iran. So those of you that think that we can live with Islam, you're sentencing your gay friends to death. And I've told this to homosexuals who are really supportive of Iran, and they don't believe me. It's like news to them. They didn't know that in Sharia societies, they execute homosexuals.
What percent of Muslims are Sharia?
Well,
I mean, there have to be more modern Muslim communities where most Muslim Americans, maybe you'll argue otherwise, and I don't want to get into this because I want to go into other stuff, but I'd say that most American Muslims, based on the 0% zero information I have on it, don't live according to Sharia law.
Well, if they don't, okay, American Muslims can do whatever they want because they're in America. But in Muslim countries, if you don't live according to Sharia law, you can go to prison. As a matter of fact, they were about to execute a woman for discussing Christianity in Pakistan this week.
Well, Pakistan's no frickin' garden spot.
Well, it is it's one of the most devout Muslim countries.
Yeah, so but
and
what
they were going to execute someone for trying to convert people to Christianity. Execute her.
like Indonesia's Muslim, right? And Bahrain and Qatar.
Uh-huh.
Those places, I bet you don't have to practice Sharia.
By the way, okay, first of all, that's false. But
All
did you
three
know?
of them? Like
Did you know? I was looking at a statistic today. Did you know that 45% of the people that get married in the Middle East, in the Muslim countries, are blood relatives?
How blood?
Well, it basically they're marrying their first cousins. And the reason, don't interrupt me, the reason they do this is because Muhammad had sex with his first cousin.
Great, all right, great.
So it's a tradition in the Middle East to marry your first cousin, and the birth defects, the hereditary birth defects, are skyrocketed compared to any other society. There are people born without
All right,
brains,
you've told me about
people
this.
born without genitals, people that they can't think clearly, they can't see properly, and this is endemic in the Muslim world. That's 45% marrying first cousins, blood relatives.
All right, so don't do that.
So my point is, if that's what's occurring in the most Muslim region of the world, everywhere from North Africa to Iran to Pakistan, that's a huge swath. That's almost 1 billion people. Those people do believe in Sharia so much that they can't stop creating horrific birth defects in their societies.
All right, that's bad. But there are countries, there are Muslim countries that aren't that. Come on.
That's right. Rick, do you want to go on to another subject?
Yeah, I do. Hockney. David Hockney.
Wait, there are Muslim countries that are as liberal as San Francisco and Denmark,
No.
where people are walking around naked, being Muslim, and just kissing, and it's just, they're like democratic paradises in these countries, and there's devout Muslims. You're right, Rick. I'm sorry, I got that wrong.
How many Muslims are there in the world?
You know what that country is called? It's called, it doesn't exist, Rick. That's the name of that country. Now let's change subjects.
No,
I think that's a good end
No,
for this subject.
I bet you if we looked it up, and we can do it on break, there's a map that ranks Muslim countries.
The happy Muslim countries
Yeah.
where everything's going well?
Yeah, from most intense to least intensely Sharia-ish.
Compared to what, though, Rick?
I don't know.
Compared to Switzerland?
Sure.
Okay, let me explain this to you.
No, don't explain. We're going to do it on break. Let's move on to something else.
But it's a ridiculous comparison.
Maybe it is.
There
maybe
are
it isn't.
no Muslim countries that compare to Protestant countries in liberal behavior. None. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous comparison.
We'll look it
You're
up.
telling me, you're going to go on record in front of 1 billion viewers, and you're going to tell me that there's a country in the Middle East that's Muslim that is as liberal as Denmark.
No, I'm not saying that.
Well, then what difference does it make? If it's more liberal than Abu Dhabi, but not as liberal as Saudi Arabia, what difference does it make?
Well, I bet you there are.
It's the best of a bad lot.
Let's look it up.
Just use logic, Rick.
No. Frickin' no. We'll look it up. But let's talk about David Hockney. You hate David Hockney.
I'm too freaked out to talk about
No,
David
come on,
Hockney.
David Hockney. This
You
week,
promise me you won't try to look up the liberal Muslim country.
we'll see. This week, or a few days ago, David Hockney, a living artist, had one of his paintings sell for $90.3 million, the most money ever paid for a painting done by a living artist. Lance is going to show you that painting.
All right, so here it is, right on cue. We have incredible production values in this show. Is it blurry? Is it a good angle?
Okay. Is that right?
You got it?
What's it called? Splash or something?
I don't know.
But it's a dude looking at another dude who's in a swimming pool in a Speedo.
All right, so here's the situation. in my opinion, David Hockney is a nice artist. I think that at the time that he did this painting, it was kind of refreshing to see Southern California portrayed by an outsider from England in a kind of a nice illustrative way. So in other words, David Hockney, I can't trash David Hockney because I think he is a man of moderate talent. He's not a genius, but I got to give him credit for one thing. He had a little. He was the first to come up with a kind of a fresh, kind of illustratively pretty depiction of Southern California. Now, when I say illustration, I mean he worked with, his figures are flat looking. They look like, in a way, children's book illustration level technical quality. But it's a nice, fresh view. Not a lot of dark shadows, and I think his paintings would look good in anybody's home. Okay, they're decorative. They're not terribly deep. They're just full of light and color, and that's okay. So if somebody said to me, is he a good artist? I'd say he's a nice artist. He's okay. But he's not the greatest artist in the world, and he's not even in the top of serious artists. I don't think he's in the top 50%. I mean, he's better than your grandma next door that does watercolors of kittens, but he's not a truly great artist. He's about as good as somebody that should be having shows in a gallery in a large town, in a large city.
You want to show your paintings by comparison?
Okay, so just to give you an idea, David Hockney, you saw the David Hockney that went for $90 million.
Under the light.
Under the light. Can you focus on this? Without glare, is it getting glare?
No glare at all. That's perfect.
So can I hold it still?
Yeah.
All right, is it still enough for people to see it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this painting, David Hockney's painting goes for $90 million. I'll sell this for $3,500.
Can I do the math real quick? So for the price of one David Hockney, price of one David Hockney, you could buy more than 2,500 Lance Richlands.
Okay, wait, let me just get one more. Now, if you don't like portraiture, if you really like paintings of people in swimming pools, then I disappoint you. But on the other hand, you may not have $90 million.
This is another one for $3,500?
No, this one's a little bit more. This is probably around $7,000. Around $7,000.
The deal with Lance is, the longer he paints, the more detailed the paintings get. So you're paying more because Lance has put in more labor and has also had to shell out more money paying for the model.
Yeah, these are painted, instead of copying from photographs like David Hockney does, I actually hire models, as you can see, right, if you've been watching this show. So this is more what the eye really sees. Anyway, so this is around $7,000. This painting is called The Regret.
So you could get 1,300 of these for one David.
I'm talking about the painting.
All right, sorry.
Don't do the math. So this is called The Regret, and I think it should be somewhat clear what he regrets, or if he regrets something, we'll put it this way, and the girl in the background has something to do with it, and it's sort of up to your interpretation what he regrets, but that's the painting. Anyway, so now,
Rick, can you just say that, in your own way, how painting life is so much better than
Well, I mean, look at the degree of this has more three-dimensionality and depth and detail, but it's than you know, David Hockney, that painting, the swimming pool painting by Hockney, took what, maybe 20 hours, maybe less? This thing.
What I'm saying is the paintings look so much even richer right now as we see them, as opposed to the film called me filming them.
Oh yeah, in real life, you know, the seeing them on video doesn't do them justice. They're freaking crazy in real life in terms of the.
I mean, they look great already, but
Yeah.
you can only imagine.
Now, also, didn't you get in an argument with Hockney where Hockney
I
claimed?
met Hockney.
Yeah, it didn't-
Hockney, actually, this is funny. You heard it here first. Hockney was famous for a theory that he wrote about how he believed that the old masters, in order to draw their figures, had to use machines, like simple contraptions, because nobody would possibly have the talent to paint anybody from life.
Hockney was arguing that the old masters used like mechanical.
Like a system of mirrors and reflections so that they could trace the drawing, because nobody would have the talent to do what they did
With their own
with
eyes
just
and
their
brain.
eyes and a brush, like I've been doing for Rick all this time. And I argued with him. I went to one of his shows. I could see that he was basically deceiving the audience when he said that, because he used a number of tricks to make his point. In other words, he literally had to deceive people about it.
What, he had to make up devices?
No, what he did was he said that when they X-rayed the drawings underneath the paintings, there were no corrections on the drawings. In fact, there were just simple lines that looked like they'd been traced. Okay? So his argument was, because the drawings underneath the paintings had been traced, then they must have been using a tracing contraption full of lenses and mirrors that would cast a reflection that he would trace. And everybody in the audience bought it. But what he didn't know, including famous critics that I've talked to, is that you very often trace your drawing done from life onto your painting. The fact that something is traced doesn't mean you used a device. I sometimes do something from life, just looking at it, and I draw it. But I draw it on a piece of paper because it's easier, and then I trace it onto the canvas.
If they go back to our canvas, it was you initially.
I just drew, yeah, but I didn't trace it. I just drew it from life.
Oh.
But Hockney points out these really complicated areas in paintings that look like they've been traced when they X-ray it. But the thing is, of course you would do a drawing of something complicated on a piece of paper first, because you don't want to have to be painting that if it's that complicated. So you make it simple for yourself. You do a drawing, then you trace the drawing on. Does that make sense? Are you following? Okay, but you're really smart.
Well, let me say one other thing.
Okay.
When somebody is like a beginning artist, they do something that I call scrubbing, because they're not certain of lines and they think that they can make it artistic they'll go, you know what they do.
Yeah, they'll do a lot of different lines, yeah.
You, however, being a trained guy who can see stuff,
Yeah.
you can take a look at a silhouette.
Right.
And you can draw that silhouette with a pretty high degree of precision just in a single line down.
I could if I wanted to, yes.
Yeah, so
But okay, go ahead.
I'm just saying that precise lines in a painting don't mean that you've used mechanical means to reproduce anything.
No, that's true. You could erase out the mistakes anyway, even on a canvas, and no one would ever know. So the point is that he's a liar, and
Can't he just be wrong?
No, because he knows that you can trace a drawing onto a canvas.
Okay.
Everybody does it, but he's actually been able to fool very intelligent people with this. It's amazing how badly informed art
Why
critics
does he want
are.
to do that? Because he wants to...
He just wants to make an excuse for why he's no good.
All right, should we break now?
Do you think you can kick his ass physically?
Oh, I chased down some kids, some bad neighborhood kids, and came very close to doing that.
Real quick, just to put a bow on this subject,
Yeah.
how much will this great Rosner painting go for?
I think a minimum of 10,000.
Oh, just say it's because sometimes they can't hear what I say.
I think it would be a minimum of 10,000
here.
because I don't think not because there's a market for it, but because I don't want to let it go unless.
Stop putting bids on it now?
If they cared about that, that'd be great. But the thing is I won't accept less than it's worth.
So if somebody offered you 10,000, would you take it for this?
Yeah, I think so.
I got bummed this week because I was thinking about this painting and the rest of your works, and also some of the crap I buy on eBay.
You just sneezed into your own painting.
Sorry, that just makes it shinier. I was thinking, like, I've been buying some like pretty cheap antique jewelry for Carol on eBay, and I was thinking that within 100 years of now, you know, it won't be humans, unaugmented humans, who decide what things are valuable or not. It'll be augmented humans and various forms of AI who will dominate more and more of what tastes are and what the economy is. And I'm afraid that 200 years in the future, you know, that this stuff will be looked at as, you know, the way that we look at birds' nests, which is, yeah, we just don't care. All right, that's something birds do. Who gives a crap? And that the new economy of the future will be built around the creations of the more intellectually powerful beings of the future, and all this stuff will have, you know, be the tchotchkes of the past.
No, it's possible. I'm fully prepared for all of my work to end up in closets. Like after I die, a few people that know me will show up, grab the painting, stick it in their closet, and someday their kids will find it and say, "Hey, what's this thing?"
And their kids will be like, they'll be on tripods, and they'll look like the Borg.
Yeah.
Lance talked about Hockney and not very. Who are a contemporary painter that you admire right now, Lance? Would you say?
Okay, I just want to explain about Hockney though. Hockney basically draws about as well as a third-year art student, but he. A lot of people think that he had influential friends, and he did have a good idea about the swimming pools, painting pictures of people with swimming pools. But the point is that I believe he came up with that theory about the old masters because he can't accept that there are people that can draw and paint from life because he can't.
Didn't you offer, or wouldn't you offer to teach him?
I offered to demonstrate for him how to do this from life, and of course that was of no interest. But I think that the greatest living painter is Odd Nerdrum, and that's Oddnerdrum, and he's a greater artist than me. I don't think he's technically as skillful as me, but his overall accomplishments are much greater than my own. So, just make it clear, I could probably paint a head or a figure better than him, more realistic, but he's done beautiful compositions that are multi-figured. He's done hundreds of paintings. He has a whole mood that he creates, which is very powerful, and in that way he's greatly surpassed me. So to be a great artist, it's not just about how well you can paint a figure. You also have to be able to tell a story and create an emotion in the viewer. And I don't know if this is really going to create much of an emotion, but I'm trying to get it to... The strength of this painting will be, it will be impactful. In other words, when people see it, they'll feel his presence. And that's a viable purpose for a painting.
Also, story elements are beginning to creep in.
That's correct, and I'll talk about those when they're more
developed. Let's break.
All right.
Really?
All right, 79.3. I'm just going to read tweets. Lance is going to get pissed at the tweets. These tweets aren't as much funny as they are just pissy.
Hey, can you take your shirt off?
Oh, we're still painting?
Yeah.
Sorry, okay. Except I'm holding the frickin' computer. All right, from last week. A generation is growing up thinking that it's normal to lose your shit every dang day over the nonstop malfeasance of a dumb, insane con man president. Also, that everything is on fire. All right. See, it's just pissy. Come on, give me some more here. Okay, here's one about, I'm not going to read because it's just about the big dick toilet.
Did you want to talk about Acosta?
Oh, okay, we can.
Did you want to put this here so I can paint?
Sure.
Can you see?
Yeah. Oh, today our president called Adam Schiff. So funny to see little Adam Shit instead of Schiff talking about the fact that acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker was not approved by the Senate. So that's the level of our president.
The president said the word shit?
He tweeted. He called him Adam Shit instead of Adam Schiff.
Oh, come on.
He did. You want to see the tweet right here?
Really?
Yeah. See SHITT right there.
Okay.
And what did I say? Fortunately, America has more non-idiots than idiots. Non-idiots aren't amused by your shit and will stalemate your chaotic, racist, grifter plans. So
I'm glad you called Trump a racist. That was really
you got to throw that in there.
That required a lot of intelligence, Rick. I'm impressed. I mean, you know what? I'm still waiting for you to tell me why Trump is a racist.
Well, let's not have that argument again. But didn't you wanted to talk about
4 minutes. Acosta.
what? Oh, Jim Acosta.
The director wanted us to talk about Acosta.
Okay, Acosta is the White House reporter for CNN who got into a little tussle with the mic girl during a presidential news conference. He kept repeating a question, wanting Trump to answer the question. The mic girl, the White House intern, was trying to yank the microphone away. He wouldn't give the microphone up. And he got 86th from the press room. CNN sued, and the judge ruled, no, you can't keep him out of there.
You know, this ties into what you were saying about Whitaker, because Whitaker is against judicial review, you say. I don't know if he is against judicial review, as a la Marbury versus Madison, but if it means that chicken shit little judges can force Acosta back into the newsroom, then I think these judges really do need to be curtailed in their power. I don't think it's up to some judge to say whether Trump has to have this guy back in the White House. And I would be in favor of Trump challenging.
So you don't believe in the First Amendment, I think is what I'm supposed to say.
It has nothing to do with the First Amendment. I mean, the CNN has many more reporters, and there's nothing in the Constitution that says that Trump has to allow rude people to heckle him and harass him. It's crazy.
Was he really being heckled, or he was just asking the same question more than once? So answer this question.
You know what? If the president says, I don't want to talk to you, it's not for some chicken shit judge to say that the president has to talk to him. So I think that I'm glad that Whitaker is against judicial review. If he is, I'd have to read that. But I think these judges are trying to impose their will on the country.
Bush.
And I think it's wrong. I would be in favor of Trump challenging these judges by saying, you know what? I'm the head of the executive branch, and I don't do what the judicial branch tells me.
That's crazy. So how are any? We have 3 branches, so they they provide checks and balances for each other.
Right.
So if you provide unchallengeable power to one of the or 2 of the branches, how are you going to stop stuff, from non-constitutional abuses from happening?
Well, the executive could say, my view of the Constitution is that I don't have to have this prick Jim Acosta coming in here and fighting with me about not relinquishing the mic.
Well,
I mean, I don't have to let him into my house, and I don't have to let him into the White House. And my interpretation of the Constitution is just as good as this judge's.
What if Trump decides to say that I don't need to run for president in 2020? Given the state of the country, I need to just keep being president and spare the country the turmoil and expense of a presidential election.
Well, what if the Supreme Court said that? I mean, would that make it right? If the Supreme Court said, hey, we're all conservatives, we like Trump, let's give him another three terms.
Well, that's not how the court works. The court doesn't come up with laws itself. The court takes a look at existing laws and decides whether they jibe with the Constitution.
Okay, let me ask you a question. We're both adults here.
Yeah.
Do you think that this judge has the legal right, according to the Constitution, to force Trump to have Jim Acosta in the White House asking him questions?
I haven't read the ruling.
No, but I have.
What was the basis of the ruling?
No, listen.
Did you read the ruling?
No, I didn't, but I used my brain. No, my brain is fine. There's nothing wrong with my brain. My brain says this: in the United States, if I'm the president and I don't want that report